Hello everyone, it's Shel from Paper Octio Studio, and today we have another hashtag November Daily Art Journal Challenge page. The prompt is books, and it is for the 21st of November. So this is the 21st page out of 30. So I am working in my small Dilutions journal. This is 5 inches by 8 inches. So it's a double page, so I've got 10 by 8 space to work with. I'm starting out with drawing with my drafting pencil. This is a mechanical pencil called a Pentel Graph Gear 1000, which is a really nice pencil. And it's got soft lead in it, a 2B. So I'm just using that and my white eraser to make a drawing. This prompt is books, and the kind of books that I read are urban fantasy. And you know, maybe that the genre is designed for teenage girls. I'm not sure, but I'm not a teenage girl. But I really, when I want to read, I want to be entertained, and I want to not be thinking about something really heavy, and I don't want to be crying while I'm reading and dramas, you know. I just want entertainment. And this genre has sprung up kind of as an addition to fantasy, where there is usually a strong female lead that's young. There's usually a young female strong lead who you know, she finds out something about herself. She's descended from dragons, or she's a witch, or you know, something, and then there's some sort of thing where she has to save the world or save something, and usually there's a romantic something in it, where she meets some werewolf and she doesn't like him, but then she finds out she does. You know, it's a combination of like those funny romances, and then the fantasy genre that I've been reading since forever. I mean, my very first books were about King Arthur, and then I was reading all the Piers Anthony ones with all the crazy creatures and worlds, and I just love that stuff. Vampires and werewolves and fairies and witches and magic, and you know, this concept that there's a hidden world that the true humans don't see. You know, we're all muggles, right? I didn't actually read Harry Potter till much later because they weren't around when I was a kid. But I enjoy this. I enjoy this a lot. So I want to dedicate my art journal page to that sort of a look and that sort of a genre. So I'm on the left-hand side, I made some books, and I'll flesh them out later. And then on the right-hand side, I made some random chick, and she's got her sword, and she's dressed in her leathers, and she's, you know, there's a cityscape in the background because it's urban fantasy. There's usually a city involved, and you know, a city where they're trying to hide their true selves from the other humans, and something's happening. You know, it's great stuff. I love it. So I drew all my scene in, and she's out in the woods on the edge of the city, probably looking for something. I don't know, but she's ready to fight. She's got her blades, and she's ready to fight. So I'm now filling in the background of the page with Dilutions paints. I realize I need to use these things up because they're getting, you know, clumpy, and I've been adding a little bit of water to them every time I open them just to try to keep them alive. But I've got the black, the London blue, and the turquoise, something turquoise. And I'm just kind of filling in the background. I'm not going to go overboard crazy with layers on this one. I already know this is going to take me long enough to just fill in the drawing alone without making a bunch of layers of stuff. I am going to do some collaging, and then just straight painting, and then filling in at the end with details. So these Dilutions paints are bright, bright colors, and you know I like that. Even the black is black, black. It's a nice way to coat the paper really quickly. So for some of it, I used makeup sponges, and then for the rest of it, I'm using a brush, a little flat, soft brush. And then right around the figure, I'll have to use an even smaller brush in some areas. But I'm not using colors like the ground is not turquoise in real life. You know, this is about fantasy. So I'm making the foreground turquoise even though that's not realistic, and there'll be turquoise in the trees and in the sky along with that blue and the black. But it certainly gives you an idea of a night sky. You know, she's out hunting in the dark. So it's just not 100% realistic colors, and that was intentional. Like close enough, but not 100% realistic. If you know what I mean, Jelly Bean. So then I'm going to do my trees kind of as silhouettes with the black, and then add some highlights to make them stand out a little bit more. But they're not the focal image. The girl is the focal image, and then the books on the left-hand side will be focal image as well. So they're more of a silhouette, although I'm not going to make them 100% black, you know, like filled in black like a regular silhouette. They're silhouette-ish. Let's just say that. Yeah. That makes perfect sense. Silhouette-ish is now a word. Bet you guys will have a hard time spelling that. I would. I can't even spell silhouette very well because it's got that H in the middle of it. It's strange, strange word. So once I have my stuff started to fill in, you know, most of my background's filled in, I'm going to do some collaging, and you've seen me do this technique before if you've been watching my channel, where I use deli paper as a pattern. So I'm tracing my little drawings here and straightening them up a little bit because, you know, I got black all over everything, so they're not straight anymore. And then I will cut apart the deli paper, cut each little book out, not perfectly, but first I'm going to straighten out the lines because I needed a ruler to do that, you know. Got my little straight edge, making them a little bit straighter because my lines are not perfect, of course, because I can't draw perfect straight lines. I don't know a lot of people that can, actually. It's pretty tricky. So then I'll cut randomly each one apart and use them as patterns. And instead of trying to cut the pattern while holding it, you know, like if you're into sewing and you're using sewing patterns, you pin them to the paper. I mean to the fabric, right? And even that is kind of annoying. They still kind of slip and you don't get an exact perfect pattern. Well, what I do is I glue my pattern because it's just deli paper and it's so thin. It's has, you know, has very little weight. It doesn't matter. I glue it with my matte medium to the backs of my papers. And then once it's dry, I can just cut them out and then I just glue them on and nobody knows the deli paper is in between there. And that's something that I came up with a long time ago to help myself doing paper painting. And it also works for this, which is just basically paper piecing. I'm using some jelly prints and extra paper that's had painted onto it when I have extra paint on my palette to make my books and my moon as well. I absolutely love the jelly print that paper moon is cut out of. It's just really, there's just little scraps of it left, but it's just a really cool print. Had it for a while. I like it when there's lots of crusty stuff on my jelly plate that comes off on the next layer and makes little specks of paint in my other paint. It's just very interesting to me. So I didn't want to get a bunch of splatter all over my books, so I decided to put the splatter on first before I glued the books on, so that they don't get splattered. And the splatter, of course, is to make stars in the background. Because if it's a dark moonlit night, then there's stars, you know. Especially out in the woods where there's no streetlights. But the glow from the moon and from the city is right there where that blue is. I put the blue there intentionally around the moon and the city because that's the light that would be shining into the sky, and then the rest of it's black. Even when I'm slapping paint on, I still am thinking about color. I'm always thinking about color and light and shadow. Even when I'm just looking at stuff, I'm thinking about that. I think I'm a little bit obsessed with it. So now I'm going to get out the Posca pins. Posca pins have some sort of a little BB or something inside the barrel, and you really need to shake it, and sometimes that little BB gets stuck, and I was pounding it on the desk. If you wondered what I was doing, I was pounding it to try to get the BB unstuck so that it would mix up the paint inside the barrel. And I want my cityscape to look urban, so I've made it gray like concrete. Because, yeah. Now this is the first time I've ever colored the skin with a Posca pen. Ever. I've had this pen, it's in my set of 15 colors, and I just keep thinking of it as light orange, but it's actually flesh tone, and I just never use it. So I'm going to actually color her in with a Posca pen. Usually I get out my Neocolor 2s or else like portrait pink acrylic, do a lot of shading and highlights, but this time I'm just going to do the very bare minimum. Her face is small, and I'm not going to overfuss with it. Also, I'm trying to get a lot of pages done. As you're watching this, I'm out of town, so I didn't actually make this on the 21st. I made it in advance so that there would be a page every day because I am on a trip. So, and it's coming down to the wire where I need to get these done. So I'm doing hopefully 3 today. I don't know if I can make 3. 2 is really hard in a day, but I don't want you guys to miss me. I want to have a page for every single day of November, even though I am having to do them in advance. And hopefully where I'm going, I will be able to answer all your comments. Please continue to leave comments, even if I don't answer you super promptly, because that is what makes my channel grow. And I know you guys want to get to 4,000 because that's when the next giveaway is. So if you stop leaving comments, then YouTube doesn't know that I'm making good stuff, and then they don't recommend me to other people, and then my channel doesn't grow. So that's what you can do to help me if you're enjoying all these videos I'm doing. Because I'm working hard, people. I'm working hard. So someone made a comment to me the other day that I didn't ever think about, and that was to just draw the Posca pen on your palette. And she said that what she was doing it with Sharpie pens, and that she was just diluting it and picking it up with the brush with some alcohol. But since Posca pens are acrylic paint, they're water soluble when they're wet, so I could just draw onto my paper and then just take a wet paintbrush and use that. And I just used the pink to do a little bit of shading in her face and the white to use a little bit of highlights. And it worked great. It worked great for such a small space. I wouldn't be doing it for a large space, but when I just needed a little tiny bit of pink to just give a little bit of shading to her face, yep, super easy. So then for her leathers, I wanted them to be black leather, but I didn't want them to be so solid that when I went to draw detail on it, you wouldn't see it. So I decided to use my Dr. P.H. Martin's India ink. These are Bombay inks, the black from that. And then when I use it with a little bit of water, it's like a watercolor. It's like a permanent watercolor because it's India ink. It dries permanent. But then I'm getting like a variation of color as if it was a watercolor because I diluted it with a little bit of water. So then when I draw my detail lines over that, it still looks like it's dark black leather, but then you can still see the detail lines. So that worked out great, and I have to remember to use those more often because they are really fun. And they're permanent. It's permanent watercolor, basically. I kind of forgot I had them until then I saw them, and I'm like, hey. So now I'm writing the titles on my books. These are actually things that I wrote down from my Kindle library. I won't say that these are my favorite books or favorite authors because I can literally read a book in 2 to 3 hours. So I go through a high volume of books because I read at night to calm myself down when I'm going to sleep. I can't just lay down and sleep. I have a really hard time sleeping. My brain is too active. It's constantly thinking about things and making lists, and I'm hyper. And so I read at night, and I read on my Kindle. Actually, I read on my phone with the Kindle app. And so I just looked in my library and wrote down some titles and authors that were in there currently that haven't been returned yet. I have the Kindle Unlimited subscription on Amazon, and so I pay somewhere under $10 a month, and I can read all the books I want. They have tons and tons of books, and they have a ton of urban fantasy books, and all other kinds too, but I'm enjoying that. I used to have Oyster, and then, which was a similar concept. It was a subscription. It's kind of like Netflix, only for books. And I can just download them onto my phone on the Kindle app, and then I can just read in bed with the lights off until I go to sleep. So works out really good. So I put on little bands. Obviously, if I had real books, these would be paperbacks, and they wouldn't have little bands like that. But I wanted them to look more like books, like, you know, books that you might find in a fancy library with leather binding and gilding and stuff like that. And then my last thing to do is just to add all the detail into my girl, and then I'll be done. So I'm doing that with Posca, the fine tip, white and black. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment, subscribe, and share if you want to. And those things, of course, help me out a lot. Down below in the description box, there should be a couple links to my friends who did the same prompt today as I did. And then if you use the hashtag November Daily Art Journal on Instagram, there's a whole folder of a couple hundred pages that people have done over the month, that people that are playing along. So go check them out and give them little hearts because they'll appreciate it. And I don't think I have anything to say, any other thing to say. I think I said a lot this video. So that's it for me. Thanks. Bye-bye.